And we're live.
Hello, and welcome to the Modern Romantic Podcast, where we celebrate and inspire romanticism through passionate people doing incredible things. Hi, I'm Dancing Through Life. Hi, I'm Trey, and I'm joined by my co host, Emily. Hi, Emily.
Hello, I'm Emily, and I am not singing Rolling in the Deep by Adele. But Trey is, and go.
Rolling in the deep. And that's all I'm going to do for that because this is not about me, and I already feel my face turning red. So we're going to move on. So tonight, Emily, I'm so excited to have someone here with us because I truthfully don't know a lot when it comes to the world of dance. So I'm hoping to learn a lot from our guest tonight. Would you do the pleasure of introducing our fantastic guest?
Absolutely. Tonight's guest is Isaac Aoki, a skilled dancer with a background in both classical and contemporary works. From Ballet West to Grand Rapids Ballet, his journey has been pretty remarkable. And now he brings his artistry to the Charlotte Ballet, where he has been for the last year or so, and to our podcast. Welcome to the show, Isaac.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey,
So good
thanks
to
so
have
much.
you here.
Yeah, thanks for agreeing to be on the podcast.
We do that where we go like, thank you, no thank you, no thank you,
Well, thank you.
and then that's the end. Thank you for coming, everyone. That's the end of our show. Have a good night.
So we were talking before the podcast got started about like what karaoke songs we would be belting, but I don't think we ever asked you, what is your go-to karaoke song?
Well, I kind of did karaoke for the first time in the spring, and what were some of my choices? I went with Party in the USA
Yes, classic.
and Super Bass.
Really? All right, busting out some Nicki Minaj.
Crowd pleasers.
Yes. Excellent. Did you get a standing ovation?
I did not.
Well, no worries. They will come. You were telling me beforehand, get everybody involved, get everybody amped up.
The hype, yes, that's
hype.
definitely part of my karaoke act.
Love it. I think one of the interesting things, among many, was that your journey into dance really started when you were 3. Is that correct?
I was really, really little, yes, 3.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into dance?
Yeah, I remember being at my brother's taekwondo classes, and while he was kind of learning his moves, I was kind of dancing in the mirror, and so my mom saw that, and she signed me up for kind of a local ballet program, and we performed Thumbelina at the University of Utah.
Oh, awesome.
So that was my introduction to kind of ballet.
So she was like, let's play into this a little and lean on it.
Yes.
And you must have liked it.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I was a baby frog in Thumbelina. I had these huge eyeballs, and I think 2 of us just hopped around the stage, and that was my part in the whole ballet.
I love it.
But I do remember just being backstage and seeing dancers in these classical costumes and feeling really excited about that. So from a very early age, being interested in that.
I love that costumes was part of it for you.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah, that's I've had as someone with a history of costuming, I love when someone else appreciates it in that way, because that's very transformative and also lends to the storytelling. But not everybody sees it the way that maybe you do. So yeah, very cool.
I am curious. I follow a few different dance accounts, but I'm not going to claim to know any part about dance. But I keep getting these short little snippets from the Royal Ballet where they do a production with these fully fledged animal costumes, like the chipmunk, the squirrel. Do you happen to know what show that is from?
Yes, I've seen those too. I believe they're from a ballet production of Beatrix Potter's books
Yes.
about little animals. And I'm not sure when they made that, but those costumes are unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
When you were talking about the frog, that's the first thing that came to my mind.
Oh, I saw the
I
frog.
have
Oh, that
seen.
was excellent.
Yeah, I saw that frog too. I sent it to my sister because frogs.
I want to see that ballet. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously.
Yeah. The Royal Ballet just had a costume clearance sale to get rid of some of their stuff, and I have a friend in London that may have grabbed a couple things for me.
Oh, I bet that was epic.
Mm-hmm.
Stop.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If she can send pictures, please send pictures.
Well, one is okay. I'll tell you. One is a dress, and it's green velvet, and I think maybe it was on the opera side, like it's because the opera and ballet. So I think it might have been a dress from the opera. And then the other one is a cape, and the cape is definitely more of an opera thing. I don't see anybody dancing in this easily because it is gigantic, and it looks heavy. And she said it was heavy, but yeah, I'll send pictures. Very excited. She hasn't shipped them to me. We haven't figured out shipping yet. We'll have to play around with that. I told her she should just visit here and then jam them in a suitcase.
Wear it on the plane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So great. I won't even need to look for her when she comes down the escalator. Just be
Giving
like,
Renaissance fair. Yeah.
this giant burgundy cape and her green dress.
Oh, that's stunning. She'll need to have a fanfare playing on her phone as she's coming down the escalator.
Well,
Yes,
it's
trumpets.
who it is too because it's Angelica Hyde. We had her on the show last year, the photographer.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's her. Yeah, sorry, we got away from it. We were talking Royal Ballet, and I went on a tangent like I do.
No.
So yes, the frog from Beatrix Potter.
So you've gone through dance, you got introduced to ballet. I'm curious, now that you're at this point in your career, what are the things that keep you going with ballet? Or just dance in general, excuse me.
Yeah. It's an interesting question. I think that I feel really lucky to still be dancing in my early 30s. A lot of the people I went to ballet school with, they're not dancing anymore. There are very few of us left. And so I am still looking for longevity in my dance career. And I think every dancer's greatest fear is to be forced to stop, either because of an injury or because you've burned out. And so I want to do everything I can to avoid that. And I've never been happier dancing than I am right now. And I hope to keep that feeling, for the rest of my career.
That's awesome.
That's such a good answer.
Wow. I was hoping that you were going to bring up the feelings of burnout or that sort of thing, but it really sounds like just the intrinsic love of dance is the thing that keeps you moving forward. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's hard to suppress that love, of movement, and also just getting to work with such fun, hilarious, wonderful, creative people also keeps me coming back for more.
Sure. Yeah, I think any job is better with the right people.
Yes.
And I'm glad that you also said that you work with funny people, because sometimes the world of more classical ballet can seem a little rigid. And I think especially with some media, I don't know, I think of Center Stage, which I know is not I know it's iconic for other reasons and not very well representative. But it still kind of gives that impression of being a little rigid. But you saying funny, Um, how do you think, like, what are some things that happen behind the scenes that could give a little insight to the more comedic side of ballet?
Well, I just think of at work in rehearsals. My gosh, my coworkers, they're hilarious, and they're so witty, and they make me laugh every day, and I love when I can make them laugh. And it's nice to bring levity to something that kind of should already have that, you know. And sometimes I think we lose our way with ballet, and we get a little stressed out. And sometimes I just feel like at the end of the day, we're getting, or, you know, our job is to dance, and that is such a joyful thing.
That's a great answer. Wow.
Bringing it back to joy is kind of my theme.
That's wonderful. Bringing it back to joy. That's something that like they portray ballet in movies and in theater as something that, or at least in film or television, that it's this, like you said, kind of more of a rigid, like you practice, 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 you know, and then there's jealousy and there's little fights and things that happen, and nobody's happy and no one's joyful. And I don't know that I've seen a movie or a film or anything about ballet that has been that way, to portray it in the way that you just said it. So I think it's awesome that you would say it that way. And like, because in any other job, we would want that. We want great people to work with. We want to be able to make each other laugh and have joy in the job we're doing, especially when it's an art form, because that is there, that whole joy in the journey thing. If you can't have joy in doing it, why are we doing it? And so I love that the reality of it, especially for you, is that. I think that's super important.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, and I feel really lucky. I don't take it for granted that my coworkers are great, you know, and there's a lot of, like you were saying, historically there's a bit of toxic behavior associated with ballet at high levels, and we're a bit obsessed with that vision of dance, you know, and so I'm looking forward to stepping away from the those examples, you know, when you think of Black Swan, Center Stage, The Turning Point, which are great movies, you know, but
Right.
not, they don't reflect the whole, they don't reflect everything about dance, I think.
Sure.
Just certain parts.
Like, I'll sometimes get people that'll come up to me and say, like, after I perform, "Oh, you should be on The Voice," and I'm like, that's not really what I'm going for. Do Part of me thinks that it's people trying to make some sort of connection with what they do know. Um, what are some ways that maybe that you think people might be able to connect better with dance? Just even something small.
Start dancing. I mean, I mean, that sounds so simple, but I just think that we could all use more dance in our life, whatever that means. Whether that means you're dancing as you're making your breakfast in the morning, you know, or whether you're getting paid to go perform Swan Lake, or whether you're going to go see, you know, a ballet. I just think that dance is one of those really incredible things that resonates with everyone, you know, on some level. And so, yeah, I would just say more, yeah, try to find more dance wherever you can. It's all around us.
And then bring it back to joy, right?
Yes, exactly.
You talk about loving contemporary works as well as the classical works. Do you ever find it kind of hard to balance the two against each other, or do you find that they kind of like sift back and forth fairly easily?
I have a friend who works in New York. She's a freelance dancer, and she said last summer that movement is movement, and that really struck me because we do get focused on categorizing, ballet, and ballet takes a really long time to develop, and it takes a very singular focus. However, there's so much play, I think, in between classical and contemporary. And this last season, my first season with Charlotte Ballet, they were both classical and contemporary works, and we kind of swerved in between them as a company. And I was so impressed to see the dancers that I work with go from this incredible contemporary work by Ohad Naharin, then to later in the season putting on point shoes and performing a full-length classical Swan Lake. And they're just two different sides. They're very different pieces, but to see my fellow dancers flip between the styles so easily was awesome.
One question from our chat was how many dancers are in the Charlotte Ballet Company?
There are 20 dancers in the first company, and then we have a second company called Charlotte Ballet 2, which is younger dancers, and that is 8. So we have 28 dancers in total.
Nice. Okay.
What does the audition process for a typical ballet company look like?
Now it consists of you get your CV all ready, and then you basically make an audition video that you send to companies, and based on that video, they'll invite you to audition in person, sometimes privately or sometimes at a group audition.
Okay. How long does that last normally?
It's usually an all-day thing. My audition at Charlotte Ballet was a closed audition, but many people were invited, and you take a training class with everyone, and then they make cuts, and then they move to a different section where you learn kind of pieces from the company's rep, and then they make cuts throughout the day. So that was probably a 8-hour day, start to finish.
That's a long day.
Oh my gosh, it was so intense.
Like, I can't imagine being like, you go into any other job interview and you're like, you have to be on for like, I don't know, an hour to, I mean, some interviews go quite long, to a couple hours. But for 8 hours to be like, okay, I have to be on, and not just on mentally, but physically, where like maybe you warmed up at some point but then the whole day you have to be kind of on. I don't know how else to say that. That sounds
totally
really stressful.
Yes, stressful. The audition process is not something anyone, I think, looks forward to, but it's necessary.
Yeah, of course.
Do you ever feel like I'm sorry if this is getting too personal. I really am. With this idea of like being on, a lot of actor friends of mine sometimes feel like they're like having to put on a persona whenever they're going to auditions or that sort of thing, and for them that exhausts them. Do you ever feel like sometimes you're on and then like when you can get home you can just kind of relax, or do you feel like you've kind of learned how to be your most authentic self out and about?
It's definitely a balance. There is an element of performance every day at work for us, but I definitely feel less stress about that aspect than I did when I was younger, where you feel like you have to prove yourself, and you do, because it's a competitive industry. And you want to keep getting better, you want to improve your craft. So that compels you to work harder. But I feel now that you present in rehearsal what you present in performance what you have worked on in rehearsal, and so all you can do is bring your best self to the studio every day, and that's the work that you have to do, and to resist the anxiety of feeling like you have to prove yourself, just feeling like you know the steps and that you can execute them. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, I think you did. It's I think back to when I was going through undergrad, and I was so laser focused on what are people going to think of me, or I'm laser focused on the music itself, that I maybe lost a little bit of joy in just performing.
Mm.
So what it sounds like is over the years you've grown to, like, I know the steps, and here's how I'm going to inject myself into this performance. Am I interpreting that?
I think that sounds, that sounds kind of exactly what I've experienced. Only recently, and I think since this most recent job change, have I found more security and more confidence in my dancing.
That's awesome. If you were to talk to your 20-year-old self again, or not again, but talk to your 20-year-old self, and give them advice for what you know now, what's something that you would tell your younger self?
Wow, I would tell my younger self to keep going, and that there's so much fun ahead of you and so many interesting people. But with that in mind, to also slow down. And I'm still telling myself that. To always be slowing down a bit is kind of another newfound theme for me.
Would you mind elaborating on that a little bit?
Sure. I've thought a lot about slowing down in the last year. I have this little book called The Sloth Philosophy, with really good reminders of how to incorporate slowing down into the day-to-day. I just think culturally we have been going at breakneck speed in all aspects, and I felt that before COVID, that just a little bit overwhelmed by this hustle or die culture, and then COVID kind of put the brakes on everything for everyone, everywhere, all at once. And we really had to stop and reflect, I think, and think about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And so for dance, I just think that going back to that idea of longevity and how we can push dance more in that direction, as opposed to being a flash in the pan, or having these like short careers where they're so intense, but either your body gives out or you burn out and you no longer find joy in dancing. So that's a huge part of why I think slowing down is important, and I think good things take time. I went to a botanical garden with my mom in the spring called Longwood Gardens in Pennsylvania, and they have all of these bonsai, and they're not, I think the oldest was from 1906, this ginkgo tree that had started its training, is how they said it, over 100 years ago. And I just thought, wow, ballet is a bit like bonsai, and it takes a very long time to manipulate your body to develop this classical line. And so I don't know, I just started seeing parallels with that, and you know, bonsai takes a really, really long time, but they're so beautiful. So that's kind of one thought I have about slowing down.
They talked about that a little bit this year with the Olympics, specifically with gymnastics, and how it's kind of a flash in the pan thing for a young gymnast's life to be over by their career, rather, not their life. I'm sorry, to be over by like mid-20s. They're done, and now we're seeing like Simone Biles and some of these gymnasts who are in their upper 20s or even 30 or beyond, like actually still performing, still competing, rather, in the Olympics. And that was an exciting thing to see, and how there was some conversation around that changing. Did you tune into that at all?
Oh, absolutely. I thought that was amazing to see Simone Biles out there just slaying it over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Olympics definitely, and elite athletes, I'm sure, have similar experiences with burnout and injury and balancing.
And with other sports too, I see like, and I realize that not all of these are arts, but in general, we are seeing people involved with things that are flash in the pan type experiences, where you see even sports players can get concussions and things like that, career-ending things that are preventable. And I like seeing that we're maybe paying attention and taking steps to, and maybe it's okay that we're not achieving these extremes at the sacrifice of ourselves.
Totally.
Kind of along those lines, we have a question from our chat. In thinking about your, like, the slowing down, or what you call the sloth philosophy, what is a way that you decompress?
I take lots of naps. No, no,
Yes,
valid.
we support that.
Yeah.
But I also prioritize sleep, and I tell myself it's okay to say no to fun plans, you know, when I'm tired, and be okay rotting on the couch, you know, for the whole day, and not feeling any which way about that, you know, because work is hard, you know, and it just kind of requires your total focus. So it's okay to be a sloth when, you know, it's okay to be a sloth sometimes.
Because you're still getting that artistic fulfillment. You're still doing the things that you have to do. So why not take a little time for yourself?
Definitely.
Well, and it's not even just taking time for yourself. It is sometimes the necessary fuel that it takes to do what you want to do. So I feel like I don't think it's as selfish as maybe sometimes our verbiage makes it sound. It's not like a guilty pleasure. It's maybe a necessity.
Totally.
Yeah.
Do you ever experience times where your mind just continues to go, like you've told yourself to just kind of sit there and relax, but your mind is still like going over the dance steps that you've learned 100 times?
Yes.
How do you overcome that?
I go over the steps, you know. I do, you know, and sometimes I go over them in my apartment. If it's something that I am feeling anxious about, I go over them so that I go over them enough where I feel like I don't have to have that chasing after the steps feeling. And then when I feel secure about that, then I have less anxiety outside of the studio about, you know, wow, am I going to be able to do this?
Nice. Okay, so you're still making sure that you know it, but not to the point where you're gonna obsess over it.
Exactly. Yeah. Preparedness over obsessing about the steps, I think, is a really important distinction to make.
Okay, please help me, because I am to the point of obsession. I don't know. I don't always know what that balance is, even at the ripe old age of 35. So I am still fighting that battle. So how are you finding that balance between preparedness and obsession?
Um, a lot of the past couple of years in the studio, I have felt that the mirror that we work in front of every day,
Mhm.
you really see that it is a tool, but it can also be a double-edged sword um,
No.
that pulls you into that. It can pull you negatively into that obsessive behavior. So in our training class in the morning, I stand somewhere where I can't see myself in the mirror. And then later, when we were rehearsing, I try to be really mindful about how I use the mirror. And the mirror is a great tool if you're in a group to see if you are the odd one standing out. You know, you can fix that for yourself without having the rehearsal director have to do it for you. But I think that you can get sucked into the mirror and then obsessed about what you look like, and that can get in the way of your dancing. And so I've tried really hard to let that go, and it's been great.
I wonder if like the underlying thing here is that you kind of have to get to a point where you trust yourself and your abilities so that you don't need the mirror.
Yes, absolutely. And it kind of goes back to those days during COVID when I was taking my ballet training class in my apartment, you know, and how strange that was. But it was also a bit liberating because I thought, you know, some days I would turn the camera off so the ballet master couldn't see, you know, it was just a blank screen. And then I thought, wow, well, there's no one in here and there's no mirror, Isaac. So what does your arabesque look like? What does the shape look like, you know, when there is no audience, when it's just you? And so that was an important moment for me too, I think, like you're saying, to get that confidence where you know the movement flows and you don't need the mirror to validate that.
Like you're in your mind, you're in your body, and you can only feel how it feels versus see how it looks. So you kind of have to trust that it looks good or it looks
Exactly.
how it should. And I'm wondering how that translates to vocal performance, like for Trey. If you are in your mind and your body and you can't feel how it feels because you're singing. You can feel it to some degree, but you also can hear it. And I wonder if then that's like of course you don't maybe have to struggle with a mirror, but what is it then?
The recording. So the fun science fact. So whenever you speak, what you are hearing is not actually how you sound.
Right.
Because you are resonating with more, your whole body is resonating, and that's affecting the oh my gosh. It's affecting the sound going into the I have forgotten so much of the human anatomy. I am so sorry to
This
my
is the head.
So whatever sound is going into your ears is also being affected by the resonance that's happening inside of your body and around your head. Your body is not just, you don't just resonate from like your vocal cords, every part of you resonates. So what I have to fight is I may think I sound fantastic singing in my apartment, singing in my house, singing out and about in the wild, but then I go back and I listen to a recording and I can start to hear, oh, you're flat. Oh, that wasn't as legato as I wanted it to be. So it's really getting a good sense of what does it feel like and how does it sound when it's played back to me. So not a mirror, but still just as much of a word I'm not going to say on the podcast.
Okay, but that's your mirror. Sure,
Yeah.
Yeah, oh
that
my
makes
gosh, and
sense.
with singing, you're totally exposed, because it's either the note or it's not,
Yeah.
There's very little room for error in singing, and I think also in ballet.
Yeah. And the other thing I was gonna call out is sometimes whenever you get too in your head about focusing on the technique, you start to lose the sense of the emotion that you're trying to carry. Your body gets very stiff. You start to look like cardboard on stage, and that's not fun for anybody. Um, how, from like a dance perspective, um, what does that look like for dancers when you start to get too in your head about technique and not enough about the story that you're trying to convey?
Well, I think what you said about how when you sing and you hear yourself, it isn't what everyone else is hearing. And I definitely agree that that's true with dance. And I think that the hypercritical eye that we look at ourselves with, and the microscope, it's just not what people in the audience are seeing. And I think it's really just important to remember that. And that the understanding of technique in ballet allows for freedom in the performance. And without that, it can feel stifled or tight, like you're saying. And so the flow is really important, is just as important as the technique behind it.
And ignoring the mirror and just having fun.
Exactly, yeah, ignoring the mirror.
Was there ever a performance that you thought, "Wow, God, that was terrible. My arabesque was off. My grand jeté was less jeté and more grand." Um, but then you had an audience member come up to you and just extol so many, like, "Oh my God, that was great. Like your dancing was beautiful." Have you ever had one of those moments?
Oh, I think definitely. I think many dancers have had shows where you don't feel your greatest, or you don't feel like you performed to the best of your ability, but the audience just doesn't care. There will be a handful of people in the audience who know enough about ballet or dance to see an error, but that hyperfixation on little errors is just a slippery slope, to nowhere, because it's just not about that. It's about communicating something to the audience, and bringing joy. It's
That
not about
is,
perfection.
yes, that is so well said. I actually love exactly how you said that. It's something that came up recently. I did a talk on creativity with the group Aging with Attitude, and these are people who are generally retired folks, the elderly, and they are looking for ways to enrich their life. And so we talked about perfectionism and how you're the only one that knows about the little flaw in your artwork, where whether you're singing or dancing or painting, you're the one that knows that, because what was in your head as what's supposed to be, you have this expectation, and if you didn't meet that, you're the only one that generally knows. And maybe like the people that you work with every day might see it too, but otherwise your audience generally doesn't. And we talked about all of the art that would never have gotten out there if it had to be perfect to get out there. Very little art would ever see the light of day, and how you said it so succinctly that it's not about that. I love that, and I might steal it. I think about, like, I use the analogy of from a sewing standpoint, if I sewed something not perfectly straight, it has just a little waver in the line, and I tear out all the stitching and resew it. And if I did that for every single time I did that, how long it would take me to make anything. But also, like, those sometimes aren't the things that matter. When a piece is walking a runway or up on stage or in a photo shoot, no one's that close to be looking at that little line. I know it's there, and that's okay. I can be the one that knows it's there. I wouldn't be so silly as to point out all those little flaws to my audience, maybe, but yeah. People
Flaws are
would.
good, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, just that flaws are part of the whole artistic process, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that, and how many of my pieces would never have been out there had I stopped and not fixed every little thing or let that hold me back. All the dresses I would have just thrown away, and all the costumes you wouldn't have worn, Trey.
Yeah.
If you had just focused on perfectionism. And yeah, Kaz in the chat said flaws mean life, and life is learning.
I definitely agree with that. Personally, I'm trying to let perfectionism go. I was talking to somebody at work, and I said something to the effect of, I am a recovering control freak in seek of excellence, not perfection.
Yep.
We've talked a lot about like dance and that sort of thing, but one of the many things that I love about this podcast is that any guest that we have is very diverse in the interests that they have. So you're not just a dancer, you also explore other mediums of art. Can you enlighten us to some of those other mediums?
Yes. My dad, for his career, was a commercial cinematographer. And so
Cool.
growing up, my brother and I, we were in front of the camera quite a bit. But I also learned a lot about photography from my dad, and some of my earliest memories are in the dark room with him developing film. And so I found this this love of photography, and to be able to have been able to photograph dance has also been a really interesting twist.
I was looking at your Instagram, and it is so cool. It is so cool. You have the ability to capture like a rawness that I guess, for lack of a better word, that I think makes every single shot notable and interesting.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So for those who are listening, that is on Instagram, it is IAOKI photo or just at Instagram. Duh. Yes, IAOKI photo on Instagram, and go look. Also, I want to know about your draw to doing black and white.
Oh, I think that definitely also came from my dad.
Yeah.
He only took photos in black and white.
Okay.
And so I think that made a really big impact on me. And then I was also really drawn growing up to Ansel Adams' photographs of the West in these amazing black and white images, and that really has stuck with me for since then.
Very striking. I think it's one of those things where, I was looking at how your photography conveys emotion, and it kind of ties back into what we talked about with how, like, you somewhere online you had written that you didn't have a formal photography training, but that you learned from this camera that you got. It was a Nikon, I think, right?
Yes.
I'm a Nikon
hand-me-down from my dad.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think it's cool that you focus on that more than maybe and that's not to say there's anything wrong with the technical side of it, because I think it's beautiful, but I feel like that is what shines, and I think that's what that's what makes it what your art stand out. And also your use of light is pretty cool. Just saying.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that it's similar to dance. You can have all the technique and the bells and whistles that money can buy, but if at the end of the day you aren't making a meaningful connection with your subject, then none of that technique or fancy equipment matters. It's more just about the image for me.
Yeah,
and technique is important too, but
Sure, but like you're still capturing the image. It's still like very artistic and very like. Here's, for instance, there's a photo that's you have in the caption, Fountain Street Church, October 2017, and it's rows of theater chairs with arms sort of. I can't duplicate that on the screen here, but arms like draped over, and that's yeah, I don't know. There's something about that one that speaks to me, but that was one that stood out to me as being pretty awesome. And I'm assuming you're just using like whatever light was in the theater, but like it conveys, and it's, yeah. Love it. And obviously all the dance ones you do are pretty cool too. I think because I do photography too. There's one, I use a lot of models, and I always get really excited when I find out that the model I have has done dance too in some fashion, because there's something about, and we were just talking about this like yesterday, there's something about they know exactly what to do with their hands all the time.
That body awareness.
Yeah, like all the other models are kind of, or people like, I shoot friends all the time. Like that sounded terrible. I photograph friends all the time. I do not murder my friends. Other people maybe, but not my friends. So, but they're always asking me like, what do I do with my hands? Like, should I just, and then I'm not always the best coach because I like kind of a more natural posing. So we're like, well, what do you want to do with your hands? But anyone who's been a dancer, that conversation doesn't happen. And it's such a joy to work with dancers for that reason.
Hands are hard. The placement of the hands are really, really hard.
Mm-hmm. So what do you do? Like, okay, pretend I'm photographing you right now. Do you know what to do with your hands, like in the moment?
Oh my gosh. Well, it would depend on the photo, but
sure.
I guess I kind of meant in ballet, the position of your hands is this really delicate, precise thing that is really very difficult to master.
Sure. I was just thinking, like, since you are a dancer, if like I was just yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I would frame my face.
I had a friend that would wear heavy bracelets on her wrists on purpose so that she would be aware of her hand and arm motions. Is that something that you're familiar with at all?
Yes, actually. I mean, I think there were a couple years when I would wear a bracelet or a ring for technique to kind of, like your friend said, bring awareness to your hands, because they're really important.
Those details, you feel the weight of it, and it's different, so therefore you're constantly thinking of that.
Do you have any ideas for photo shoots, or do the photos just kind of happen somewhat organically?
That's a good question.
I've let it happen a bit organically, a bit of both, and I have kept my photo projects sometimes a bit separate from dance, because it's nice to go photograph something that is just unrelated, But since moving to Charlotte, I've been able to photograph the dancers more and more, and that collaboration has been really exciting, and to photograph the company kind of from within is a unique opportunity, I think.
I think so.
Yeah. Like, I Right. Emily was focusing on the theater. I'm looking at the one from just a couple weeks ago with the two dancers interlocked in one of another, in each other's arms. Just the way that he has his head nestled into her neck. Like there, it is just screaming so much trust, but also conveying so much love. And I don't even, I haven't even seen the piece, and I'm in love with these two dancers. Like it's, I'm gonna steal Emily's line and say it's just such a moment of rawness, and mm, chef's kiss.
Oh, thank you, Trey. It was a special photo of rehearsal for the show that we're working on right now, and it was just this really tender moment that stuck out to me. So I was super stoked to capture that moment, between Mario and Fuki.
And I'm sorry, will you say the names for me one more time?
Oh yeah, I believe it's my friend Mario Gonzalez and Fuki Takahashi, my coworkers.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Um, yes.
You should come see the show this weekend, and you'll see that moment.
Oh, yeah, you should.
Honestly,
Everybody should.
You're in the Charlotte area.
I am. Let me double check. I don't think I have rehearsal this weekend. So I might be checking out a fun show from Charlotte Ballet.
How long is the show going for?
This is actually the last weekend,
Okay.
but we've been performing every weekend in October.
Okay. And then what happens after that for you?
We're working on a new Carmen for the spring.
Okay.
And I believe that is set in 70s era Las Vegas.
Okay.
So that'll be a fun show. And then we'll move on to the Nutcracker.
Okay.
Classic.
Yeah, classic.
Holiday staple.
I have seen the Nutcracker. In Chicago, the Bolshoi did it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I think we won tickets from some radio thing when I was a kid. And yeah, sadly, I was little enough that I don't remember a lot of it, but I remember the excitement, and I remember the music, and I remember movement, but that's about it. I remember thinking that was the coolest thing in my whole life. I mean, I might have been like 6, I was really little, but yeah, it was quite a thing. Yes. So I would say go. So everybody listening is, if you're not in the Charlotte area, you can buy a plane ticket, and
come on down.
There's a thing called a plane, or drive. There's a train. There are other ways to get to Charlotte, North Carolina, in case you're not sure what state that is, and go see the Charlotte Ballet. That's all very exciting. If you don't go, Trey, we should go next time I'm in town.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we'll also do karaoke night.
Yes.
We'll go from karaoke to ballet. It's fun. I truthfully didn't know that there was a Carmen Ballet. The only one I know of is the opera.
Yeah, actually, same.
Yes, there have been, I think, several versions made. So we're working on a brand new one here, which will be exciting.
Ooh,
Wow, yeah.
excellent.
A different era and costumes and things like that.
Yes.
From my knowledge, who's the composer for the music?
Is it Bizet? Is that Carmen? Who? I'm gonna have to fact check myself. Somebody ask the Google who.
So I have a question for you about like a day of show kind of thing. If you have a show that's like, I'm assuming many of these are in the evening. Is that true? Okay.
We'll have matinees. I mean, during Nutcracker, when we do so many shows, we will have a Saturday matinee and a Saturday evening.
Okay. So when you have like a show in the evening, and I'm basing this on my own brain, so you'll have to tell me what yours is. If I have like a performance thing in an evening, my day is ruined. Like, there is no thinking about. I'm not going to get grocery shopping done. I can't go. The only thing I could do that would maybe make me feel better about the fact that I'm performing that night is practicing. So I'm wondering what you do during the day of an evening performance? Like, can you do life?
You can. I tend not to. I tend to have the focus be just work. Um, and I like that kind of routine of going to the theater and warming up with everyone, and then basically staying at the theater through the whole afternoon, evening. So I would say most of us pretty much just focus on the show. I don't think people are out running errands. I mean, sometimes you have to, but for the most part, everyone's pretty focused on the show.
Okay.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad that they're dedicated and not out there like raising Cain right before a performance.
Did you? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, so we were both probably thinking, like, could you imagine? Yeah. What did Google say? Did you look it up?
I did. It was Bizet.
Okay.
According to the Google, the music is taken from the 1875 opera of the same name, but reorchestrated.
Okay.
Fun.
Yeah. Well, fun facto. So I know that we've asked you a lot of personal questions, and I'm sorry and also not sorry, but we also get a wonderful insight into the world of dance from your perspective. Some questions that we'd like to ask our guests from time to time. If there was ever a person, alive or dead, that if you had the chance to have lunch with and just pick their brain, who would it be?
Wow. A dance-related person or anyone?
Anybody.
I think that it would be really cool to sit down with Michelle Obama.
Oh, good choice.
That's my celebrity who I would probably lose it over. Yeah.
Solid answer. We would too. We would. Mm-hmm.
So Michelle, if you're listening, Isaac would like to have lunch with you.
If you can't contact him directly, you can contact us, and we will put you in touch. After freaking out.
I think that's a great answer. So, all right, so you're having lunch with Michelle Obama. I was going to try and have something witty, but nothing's coming to mind. So
what are you ordering for lunch? That you could bring yourself to eat with Michelle
Right, yeah,
Obama?
no, I don't think I could eat.
We talked earlier, like my second question is, we talked earlier that you would give advice to your younger self. But I'm going to think now to the people that you're encouraging to get into dance. They've just started dancing, they've just started going to classes. What advice would you give to them for those who are just starting out?
I would say go for it. I would say that there's never been a better time to start dancing. And that if it calls to you, that you have to just follow that call. I'm really excited about the future of dance right now, and where dance will go this next century, you know? And so I would say go for it.
That's awesome.
Go for it.
My final question. What is one question that you wish people asked you more?
Oh, wow. Probably why. Probably just what I love talking about dance, and I love talking about dance with y'all, and so I just probably would want people to keep asking me why I love dance, because I do love it, and I love talking about it and sharing it with as many people as possible.
Great
Okay.
answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
I'm
gonna.
gonna
Go,
I'm
go.
gonna shut up. No, I'm gonna shut up now because I've asked so many questions.
I was gonna say, well, we asked you kind of about it already, so we ask you again. But that's really it's something you're passionate about, so it makes sense. It's like your big passion.
Yes, it is.
And Trey, what's your big passion?
42.
Oh man, good answer
Really,
though.
just anything arts. Um, I feel like it's not always well represented. So if
Mm-hmm.
there's an opportunity to promote it, I would love the opportunity to talk about it.
Yep. Support the arts.
What about
Yes.
you? You've asked us. What about you?
Me?
Yes.
You know what it is? Yeah. Sorry. Um. I mean, my big passion has always been telling a story somehow. So, through the years, that's changed art forms. You know, from costuming to and theater to various things. So, right now it's photography, and I guess that answers it. Yeah,
I'd say so.
and that could change again. I'm okay with that. But telling a story is, and storytelling I think is important. So it can carry into whatever art form I decide to go spend too much money on supplies for in the future. You know,
My wallet hurts. Yes.
right? Right. Thank you, technology, for digital photography.
Yes. Oh, truly.
Yes. Well, Isaac, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been so enlightening and so fun. And I wish I was in Charlotte right now so I could sign up to see your show this weekend. And I hope Trey gets an opportunity to. Where can our listeners find you online to follow you and support you? Is your Instagram the best way?
Instagram. Yep. Instagram's probably the best way.
Okay. And again, for those listening, it's AIOK. Somehow I didn't type it right.
There's a lot of vowels.
Yeah, there's another I in there. AIOK, iPhoto. It's when I typed it next to your name, it doesn't have the second I. My apologies. Anyway, yes, go find Isaac on Instagram and follow his amazing photography work and support art.
Well, as we close this episode out, this episode, along with probably every other one, will be dedicated to Joe Capone, our moderator, fellow comedian, passionate encourager, and greatly missed friend. You can find us pretty much wherever you tune into podcasts. And for updates, announcements, and more, follow us on social media under Modern Romantic. If you have a moment, we are also on Patreon. So if you would like exclusive access to behind the scenes content, you can visit us on Patreon at TheModRom and donate a couple dollars. There are different tiers for subscriptions, so please don't feel like you have to donate to the highest tier. We have different tiers for what you are able to contribute. And if you aren't able to contribute anything financially at this time, we totally understand. Likes, shares, and spreading the good word of the Modron podcast is greatly appreciated. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And remember, bring it back to joy. Have a great day.